let's say you were to fly up into space right now. You would be sitting there in your comfy chair, and then zoop, you'd be traveling faster than the speed of light. The sights you would see would be truly magnificent. The stars would dash past you in half a second. You wouldn't even be able to see the comets or meteors or planets. And after what would feel like an eternity, you would arrive at a place where the rational was dead and the irrational was God, where shapes and numbers took on a life of their own, being produced by these giant holes in the fabrics of reality. And then, after you would pass even that, you would come to what we here at the Fireside Tales call the Great Truth, a being that is beyond comprehension, and that all creatures desire to be. This is the subject that I wanted to talk about for my last encyclopedia. And it's not an easy one to even begin to fathom. I had a large argument with Father Martin about even discussing these things. But I finally decided that you were mature enough. You haven't really shown any complaints in the comments. You've been very calm. You don't seem to be scared of anything that I'm talking about. So I think you'll be able to handle it. Now, the first thing I wanted to discuss is something that was brought up in a comment by my sister Corey Beneducci, and I had to explain in great detail, but I didn't feel like I explained it well enough. I don't feel like I got the story exactly right. And it is why it is we humans try to kill the man in gray. And this is a subject that is sensitive because we as humans don't like to think that if the man in gray were to pop into this existence that we would pull out a knife and try to kill him. But we would. And I know you probably don't think you would, but you would. It's wired into your genetics. It's a completely involuntary reaction. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's no different than if you were to be in a world of zombies and everyone was being attacked. You would, of course, fight back, right? And that's what happens with the man in gray. So, the man in black would go about making you kill the man in gray in two main ways, although there is a third where he decides for some reason that he wants the man in gray alive, and that can happen too. But the first is the most mysterious, because it's a way the man in black isn't supposed to be able to do, and that is the rage kill, where if you see the man in gray, you just go up and kill him. And that's the way I think it would happen if the man in gray were to pop into our existence right now. Again, Man in Black is not supposed to be able to do this. It's not a logical reaction to something appearing, but he doesn't care. He sees it as an emergency situation. The second way is a bit more interesting. And this isn't only a way you might react to the man in gray, but it's most likely the way you would react to one of his servants, because one of the servants isn't seen as much of a threat. And the man in black is able to hold back his rage and attack these things in a more reasonable manner. And that's the best way to describe it. It would seem reasonable to you. You would think that you were destroying this thing. You were destroying the scarecrow or a remote control that could change an object's color for a completely scientific reason. You would sit there and you would think, oh, it's so wonderful that we are getting rid of this thing that could cause so much damage to the world. And everyone around you would explain it in a reasonable way. Everything would seem to make sense. And of course it would really be that the man in black was there, and he was getting into your mind, burrowing in there, and making you destroy this thing before it became a problem. It'd be like Monsters do on Maple Street. You would see, it would all seem to fit, but it wouldn't really. Now, there are a few exceptions to who the Man in Black will kill in the Man in Gray's army. Poseidon probably would not be killed by us. There are a few talking animals that the Man in Black has allowed because they're connected with the spirits. Other spirits, too. There's many other spirits the Man in Black wouldn't kill. All of these things the Man in Black will probably eventually kill, but he's just not ready yet. There is another circumstance where the man in gray might trick us into not killing him. He might overpower us, use a little bit of man in gray in us to withhold killing him. But that's a rare circumstance, and it usually occurs only in the most unpredictable ways, because that's the way the man in gray works. I should also just briefly mention there are a few human beings that wouldn't kill the man in gray. And it's hard to predict who these people are. In fact, it's impossible. I made it out like you could, and I even came up with terms. It's just not easy to know who it is. They usually only happen about maybe once in 100, sometimes less than that. It's completely unpredictable. This is the man in gray. I can't explain it. I then wanted to move on into the man in black, the man in gray, and the man in white, and why they want to kill each other, as well as all the other 7. They, I don't think, can help it, but they might be able to. I think to a degree they can coexist with each other. In fact, they are coexisting with each other right now, according to the Fireside Tales theory. But, again, this is not in a big way. Think of it as opposite magnets. They don't want to get together, but you can force them together, and they will work, but then they want to be pushed apart. That is a great way to explain what happens between the man in black and the man in gray and the man in white. Do they want to kill each other? That is not something I'm willing to state. I cannot state whether or not it is a voluntary or involuntary reaction on their part. What I will say is that they will eventually try to kill each other. If they're around each other for too long, it's just the way that the story goes. So then we move on into the final thing, which is the great truth. All creatures desire to be the great truth. And in fact, books that could lead to the great truth are strongly held by creatures like the man in black, the man in gray, and the man in white. The Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death is not really a part of this. It's a part of it for humans. But for creatures like them, they see it as, well, the man in black sees it as, he cannot take this object because it doesn't really belong to him, It's not in his legal property. He wants it. He wants to be the great truth, and that desire runs deeply in him. But he won't just take it. He has to take it in a way that makes sense. So it's not actually a rage-induced thing for even the man in black. The man in gray, I think he just doesn't want to pick it up because he hasn't found an unpredictable enough way to pick it up. Man in white, he's just too busy being by himself. He doesn't really care about the Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death. Human beings only want it because, well, it's just in our consciousness to not want to die, and something awakens in us when we see Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death. We can't help it. Again, not a voluntary reaction on our part, although I don't know why it is human beings will kill each other for Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death. But it might have to do with what I'm actually talking about, which is the great truth, because to get Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death, you're beating death. So technically that could mean you were everything. It is a distinct possibility, and one that I think is the reason why human beings go after it, because in the end, human beings, if they could become the great truth, would try to kill their own master, the man in black. Again, I don't know whether this reaction is voluntary or involuntary on their part. All creatures want to be the great truth, and will kill to become for it, destroy. That is just in our nature. Although, I should say that there are some odd exceptions to this. Just beyond odd. The Wicker Saw was one. That's one I can think of off the top of my head. Amon from the story of the man who could live forever, he'd be a second example. Not many more, though. This is very rare. There's certain human beings, I think, that are born, probably one even today, that could resist the great truth. It's just not many. Oh, and also I should just briefly mention that you don't necessarily have to be able to resist Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death to also resist the great truth. The great truth and Captain Crooked's How to Cheat Death are seen as separate things. It's just that some creatures go after it because they have such a desire to be the great truth. And it's very complicated. Again, there's so many questions here I don't know the answer to, and I wish I did. I wish I could just give you a complete, thorough explanation. But that's the way it works here. And it is just the way that it is that we are creatures that kill. It's not something we like to talk about here at the Fireside Tales or in pleasant company. But the truth is, when it comes down to it, when it comes to the end, when it comes to life or death or becoming the great truth, in the end, we all become something that we really should never be.